Hello, Elementalists. This is Zach, creator of Elementile. Just wanted to talk to you guys today about a little match we had the other day. For those of you who don't know, Elementile is currently on Kickstarter, and for those of you who don't know, we actually funded within 48 hours. So we threw together a little celebration stream, a show match between Alex and Ryan, a couple members of the dev team, and I wanted to kind of go through that match and analyze it, give my take on it, because it was a bit of a roller coaster of a game, and I think it would just be fun to talk through. So a couple things before we start. I'm going to be basically going to be recreating the game here. I have notes on every single interaction. I've stacked the decks to be exactly what they had. So I'm going to be going through play by play, doing what they did. I'm also going to be talking a little bit about what I probably would have done in the situation, what I believe is best. Again, these are just my opinions, the sort of things that I would have gone with. I'm going to try and explain my reasoning behind those choices, and I'm going to do my best to try and explain the reason behind the player's choices as much as I understand it. Now, this video is going to assume that you know how to play the game. If you don't know how to play the game, I'm sure this will help you figure it out. You're all very bright people, and the context will help a lot. I'm going to do my best to hover in on cards and give people time to read them, but I want to keep this video concise, although I'm sure it's going to get a little long because I've got a lot to talk about here in this 10-turn match. But, I'm not going to take a ton of time to pause on every individual card. So if you get lost, I will try to zoom in on each card at least once, so hopefully you can pause the video and read it and figure out what's going on from there. So with all that out of the way, let's actually start talking a little bit about the match and what happened here. So this was a show match between Alex and Ryan. They rolled for first player. Alex won that, so he'll be playing first on this side. Ryan's over here on the other side playing second. Alex is actually playing the deck Wings of Death, which is a Wind Darkness deck that either tries to get some nice aggro position with Wind early on, and then outlast in the late game with Recursion and card draw / card discard for your opponent. So it wins through card advantage in the late game and establishes board presence early through quick Wind units and disposable recursive units. On the other side, we have Ryan playing a very classic deck, the Radiant Pack. This is just a solid mid-range deck where you just march forward with fire units and support them in the back with light units and just kind of encroach on your opponent and beat them down. They both ran for their decks, so this was not really prepared at all. They just rolled the dice and selected one of the starter decks here, and this is just how it turned out. I think in this particular matchup, I would give the slight edge to the Radiant Pack just because it has AoE spells to deal with the Wings of Death Swarm and also has like a good mid-range kind of timing push against the two parts of the game where Wings of Death is particularly strong in between the early game and late game. So I think the Radiant Pack has a little bit of an edge here. Also, a lot of the armor-piercing units in the Wings of Death deck are not going to do much against the unarmored units of the Radiant Pack. So I think Radiant Pack has a slight edge, but Wings of Death is a toolbox deck. It's got a lot of lethal units that are going to be very effective at trading into the Radiant Pack's units, so it's really anyone's game. Alright, so with all that out of the way, let's get started on the actual starting hands. So I'm just going to play a heads up here because I'm the only one in here. Alex's starting hand was these 7 cards, and the card that he searched for is the Eerie Effigy. I want to talk a little bit more about this pick later because I think it's the more unorthodox of the two. I'm going to go real quick through the rest of his starting hand. He had Corrupt, Blowback, Wisp, Archdemon, Tengu Acrobat, and the Magpie Mercenary. Now on the other end, Ryan's starting hand, he opted to start with the Pyrewolf Pup, and he drew these 6 cards. So he's looking at White Knight, Flame Demon, Frenzied Flame, Lightning Cross, Encroaching Flame, and Sun Mage. So talking a little bit about their first picks, I like Pyrewolf Pup a lot as a first pick. I think it's very standard. Pyrewolf Pup is a very good early game bully. Not a lot of the 1-drops can stand up to this unit. It has the ability to give itself a lot of reach by spending an extra fire element. It can get up to 3 attack, which can basically knock out any other 1-drop. and a lot of the 2-drops as well. It's got good hit points, so it's hard for other 1-drops to contest this thing. Very good early game bully unit, very good start, even if you're going second and will have access to 2 elements. I think that this is a strong start, because you could draw into a medic, and then all of a sudden you have a Powerwolf Pup medic out on turn 1. And against the potentially swarmy Wings of Death, I think it's good to have more low-cost units, so I like this choice a lot. On the other end of the spectrum, we have the Eerie Effigy pick. Now, you can understand why Alex went with this. It's a 1-cost unit, so he's making sure he has an early game play. The thing about the Eerie Effigy is it's a lot like some of the 1-drops in Elementile aren't exactly meant to be played on turn 1, and this is kind of one of them. A lot of the 1-drops, you can see this Eerie Effigy cannot move. Its movement score at the top right there is a dash. It cannot be altered, and it is 0. So this thing is stationary once it's played. 1-drops like this unit and this Stonewall and Earth, both of these units can't move, and oftentimes will be played in conjunction with other units later. The Eerie Effigy is really powerful when played behind wind units to kind of stop or dissuade your opponent from playing units opposite them to contest their movement. And that's kind of what this unit is for. More to be played to pressure on turns 3 and 4, not necessarily right out the gate, although it can have some impact on high armor decks, like Earth decks. When played turn 1, you can really cut off an entire column. It could be useful for that. I'm not sure about starting with this unit against this deck, but it does give you some presence. It's just not going to be able to move up and get you any more summoning space. So usually this deck will start with something like a Sprite or a Zombie if they're trying to play it safe, or if they're playing it a little riskier, they could start with like a key combo piece like the Relentless Dead, or could even go for like a hero like Ison or something like that. This is a very interesting start, and we're going to see how it plays out for him. So with that, let's move to the first turn. So Alex is going to sacrifice Archdemon here to get a Darkness. The reasoning behind this is fairly simple. It's just his highest cost unit. He's trying to survive to the late game. He's not so worried about it once he gets there. There are other bombs in the deck. There are other ways to win the game. So our Archdemon is actually a little bit disposable, even though it's the only copy in the deck. So he's going to move that over to the Ethereal Plane, grab a Darkness. No surprise, he's looking to play Eerie Effigy, his only available option, and he's going to go ahead and stick that right here. Occupying the center of the board, I like this. I think this is a good position to summon this unit. At the end of this turn, he will draw 2 more cards, and play will pass over to Ryan. So, in comes a Wraith, and a Void. And we'll pass play over to Ryan. Alright, so Ryan's first turn, he's got a bit of a choice here. He could do the same thing Alex did and sacrifice this Flame Demon because it costs 6, but he's going to take a more late game centric approach. He's going to actually keep this option and look at the fact that his hand has 2 4-drops. It's got the Encroaching Flame, and it has the Sun Mage. So early on, he's trying to figure out which one of these he wants to keep and will end up playing on turn 4, and the other one is going to be converted into elements. Now in this case, he's facing a Dark deck. Dark has a lot of armor-piercing units. Encroaching Flame costs an Earth element, which is a dip that you may not want in a primarily Fire-Light deck. So Encroaching Flame is actually going to be the first sacrifice. And I think in general I agree with this. And he's going to grab a Light element, so he has both of his primary colors represented here, which is good. And he's going to summon his Pyrewolf Pup right here, not entirely opposite the Effigy, because he doesn't want it to take that extra reaction damage here. Even though it would not be lethal on the pup, he wants his pup to stay healthy. And he's going to opt to not use his Light element, because he has nothing to spend it on. He's going to overcharge this Light. Now he could have played a Frenzied Flame this turn for both of his elements, actually get a 2-drop out on his first turn, but I think he wanted to overcharge this Light to make it so that he could play the White Knight next turn without needing to dip into Earth. I think he wanted to keep that option open, and between the two, Frenzied Flame is more of a niche unit because it really shreds unarmored units, whereas the Pyrewolf Pup is a little more flexible, a little more all-purpose. So he opts to play the pup. I think that's fine. And then he's going to draw 2 cards, and play is going to pass over to Alex. So we get our first Pyrewolf Hunter, just in time to be played next turn, potentially. It's going to give him a choice. he was banking on playing this white knight because it was only 3-drop. That's what he was planning for. But now he's going to have another option on his next turn, and then he gets a mass heal, which is actually a tech option for a different matchup. So this is probably going to be converted into elements at some point. All right, let's pass play back over to Alex. All right, for Alex's next turn, he's going to untap his darkness element here, and he's going to sacrifice his corrupt spell. Again, kind of continuing with the same strategy. He's sacrificing his most expensive stuff. In this case, opting to sacrifice the spell over this unit. This spell requires, it's more setup than like a unit which can get you immediate value. This is just going to remove something, which is good, and then on a future turn you can actually summon it back to your side of the field. But little elaborate, little more late game, so this one's going to end up being converted into elements, and he's going to grab a win. So now both players have their primary colors represented, which makes sense, and he's going to use these 2 elements to summon this wisp. He's going to opt to summon it in the corner. I think in general, a wisp's strength is its 2 flying movement. You can see it doesn't really have any attack power, and is incredibly frail. So you really have to make a lot of this 2 flying movement, and this isn't the worst spot to put it. I mean, it's a fine spot. It threatens most of the board from here, but the issue with putting it here, I think, is you can't actually make it to this column, and if you had summoned it here, you can't make it to this column. So I think I would have opted to summon it here because from this position, you can move it to all of these spots. And you're not exactly threatened by this pup. It's going to take him a couple turns to make it over here, and you could be long gone by then. You could be anywhere. So this pup is never going to catch you. It's not threatening. So in that case, I would opt to play it opposite the pup just to give myself more options in the future. And yeah, that would be kind of my choice. But Alex has summoned it over here, committing to controlling this side of the board. And we'll see if that ends up having any impact later down the line. So with that, that's the end of his turn. Both players just kind of ramping up their board. Alex is going to draw 2 more cards. And he gets a Levitate. Very good wind utility spell, very marquee spell for wind. And a Vindictive Phantasm, which is an interesting option in this matchup. Again, like I mentioned before, some of these armor-piercing units aren't going to have the most value in this particular matchup, just because fire tends to have no armor, like this Powerwolf Pup. But we'll see what this guy ends up doing a little later on. And then play passes back over to Ryan. All right, for Ryan's next turn, we're going to untap here. We're going to actually end up sacrificing the Frenzied Flame here for a light element. So I think the reasoning here is we're past turn 2. We opted to play the Pyrowolf Pup instead of the Frenzied Flame. So we're going to go ahead and sacrifice this guy because he doesn't seem like he's going to have a lot of utility. We have an option for turn 4. We've got a couple options for turn 3 to choose between. We've got a turn 6 option and a removal spell at turn 5. It looks like we're playing on curve here. We're not going to have a lot of time to fit in this Frenzied Flame. So that actually makes our next sacrifice, and we're going to grab another light. So I like the light because it actually, even after you get it, it still keeps your options open. You can use this overcharged element to pay for one of the fire costs in Pyrowolf Hunter and summon Pyrowolf Hunter. You can also use it to pay this earth cost in White Knight and summon the White Knight. I like this as kind of a coverall, and getting more light is not bad in a deck like this. There's obviously a lot of light cards. There's always going to be use for it. So this is a good choice, and we're going to go to combat. We're going to move Pyrowolf Pup forward to get a little more summoning space here, and then now's the big decision point. Are we going to play the Pyrowolf Hunter or the White Knight? Considering we're in a position to pressure, and the White Knight is not going to be able to be played kind of next to the Pyrowolf Pup here in center. It could be played back here or, one of these spots, but it's weaker when it's not near units. White Knight is usually used to protect a valuable unit, and right now you only have a 1-drop to protect. I think I would opt for taking more pressure with the Pyrowolf Hunter, just a harder hitter, hardier unit. This applies more pressure to your opponent, whereas this is usually used to protect key units, like I mentioned, and you don't really have much to protect. I would opt for the Pyrowolf Hunter, but Ryan is going to try to, I think he feels like a bit of sunk cost here with this invested light, and he wants to get his White Knight out while he can, because this is going to get used no matter what play you make. He doesn't want to invest into that Earth if he doesn't have to. So I think he's feeling a little bit of sunk cost, and he's going to opt for the White Knight. And he's going to summon him here, because I think he would like to summon him here, but the Eerie Effigy's reaction would actually kill the White Knight just for being summoned. So he's going to summon him here to pressure this Wisp. And the thing that I do like about this, obviously either of these units can take out the Wisp in one hit, Wisp being very frail, but now the Wisp is trapped. Despite its 2 flying movement, it can move to any of these tiles, but no matter where it goes, something can advance and take it out. So this sort of board position ends up trapping this Wisp, and I like that because you're probably going to be able to kill this thing for free. And it's a powerful 2-drop to just take out, unless it's just going to move up here and blink, in which case you're losing momentum to do that. And then that's what this player wants anyway. You're getting more momentum. You don't want this game to go late. You want to end it. So having your opponent have to either lose their 2-drop for free or use a special attack that's going to sacrifice momentum, you like that. You're in a good spot here. So I like this board position a lot for Ryan. I think it's very powerful. Next up, he's going to draw 2 cards and pass turn. So he gets an Explosion, another very powerful removal spell. He's kind of starting to stack those up with the Lightning Cross, and a Medic. This is another one of the 1-drops that is not usually played on turn 1 because it wants to support other units, but not a bad time to draw the Medic. We might see that come into play later. We'll see. All right, let me pass play over to Alex. All right, so Alex's next turn, he's in a bit of a predicament here. Again, because the Wisp is not here, if the Wisp was in this spot, you can move over here and then it's safe. But because it's over here and kind of trapped, this is going to force some action from Alex. I think in this position, it may be good to just like summon a unit over here to kind of give yourself a little more board presence, and then just like throw this guy down in a blink state here to try and keep one of Ryan's units on it. Because once this guy's face down, you can't kill him anymore, and then the next time you summon something, as long as this spot isn't occupied, you can summon it back here, which can be very powerful, because then after you have a unit back there, you have a foothold, you can summon a lot of units further back. So that's pretty scary and could kind of stop a bit of Ryan's advance just by nature of having this card up here. So I think that's what I would do with the Wisp, and just get some more board presence over here. But that is not what we're going to see here. He's going to opt to sacrifice the Blowback, which is kind of like a survival spell. It does cost a card in hand, but can buy you a couple turns, especially against less mobile decks like this one, by just pushing back all the threats. It really just delays your opponent's advance. Can be very annoying and pesky, but he's going to opt to sacrifice it. I guess he feels pretty comfortable in the mid-game. Feels like he doesn't necessarily need this option. He's trying to keep his units, things that give you a little more actual board presence. I don't know. I feel a little uncomfortable here, so I would probably keep the Blowback and maybe get rid of the Void, which is an anti-armor tech. Again, this deck doesn't have a lot of armor, so I think this card is not going to find a lot of use here. I think I would rather hang on to the Blowback just in case and opt to get rid of the Void. But that's all right, and he's going to grab a Wind element, which I like. Building up more of your primary elements. You always want to see that. As for his summon, he is going to summon the Magpie Mercenary over the Wraith. He's opting to play on curve here, and the Wraith can be a very good surprise option with Slay the Reckless against these unarmored units. So I like the Magpie Mercenary play here. I think it makes the most sense. So that's good. But he's going to opt to summon it very deep. Before summoning, he's actually going to summon nothing on his first summoning phase here. He's going to go to combat, move his Wisp in like this. He's going to opt not to blink it so that he gets a little more summoning space for this turn. If he turns it face down, then he only has this row to summon in. But as he keeps it face up, basically sacrificing it, he's able to summon the Magpie Mercenary deeper. The only problem with this is this Magpie Mercenary cannot attack because combat ended as soon as this Wisp... combat started as soon as the Wisp moved. So then in order to summon more units, you have to go past your combat phase. So now your combat phase has already happened. Magpie Mercenary can't attack. And now is like pretty deep and hasn't actually done any attacking, so you haven't really gotten any value off of him. And while it could halt Ryan's advance by occupying these two tiles and forcing him to answer these deep threats, I think there are probably better ways to halt the advance than sacrificing a couple units here, like the blowback is something that I might opt for over making these sacrifices. So I'm not sure if these summons are super advised. I think it would have been better to, I mean, even summoning the Magpie Mercenary here, if you want to take a little more space than putting him back here. Back here's the safest and probably what I would do, just because I tend to be a little more passive. But even this is a little better because now in order to take out the Magpie Mercenary in one hit, the Powerwolf Pup can't do it even when boosted, and the White Knight can't reach. So you're occupying a nice center space, and the only way this Powerwolf Pup is going to turn into something else or become more threatening is Ryan would have to commit like a buff spell on it, or would have to summon on top of it, which would remove the pup. So at the very least, you're trading these two, which is not a trade you're super happy with, but if you want to occupy the center of the board, I guess, this is a way to do it. So I think either of these options would be better, or at least I would prefer them, but he opts to summon up here, and now we're looking at I mean, Ryan's going to have a pretty strong third turn as he just blows out these units. They're both pretty much, they're not dead to board, but you can expect that for 4 elements, fire is going to find a way to kill this. They'll be able to do 4 damage, and then this thing dies to the faintest breath, and you're giving Ryan the option to kill it with either. Overall, you're setting up Ryan for a very nice turn, so I don't know. Anyway, that's the end of it, and we're going to draw a couple new cards. We get the Dragon, which is a late game option, replacing kind of the Archdemon that was sacrificed early on, so we're happy to see this, I think. Now that's a little later in the game, and we get another copy of Levitate. All right, we'll pass it back over to Ryan. Okay, Ryan's turn 4. We're going to untap here. Obviously, this position looks very good for reasons I kind of already explained on Alex's turn. We're going to see exactly what Ryan does here with a lot of different ways to take advantage of this position. He's going to opt to sacrifice Mass Heal. I think this makes sense. Again, this is a tech option for the water matchup. There's no water in this particular match, so you don't really need it. I was kind of expecting Mass Heal to get sacrificed last turn over the Frenzied Flame, but it made it 1 extra turn, but yeah, it's not going to see play this game most likely. So that's going to go down. We're going to get more fire, which, again, sticking in our primary elements, I think that's always good, at least for this deck. And then we're going to, for 4, summon a Sun Mage on the first summoning phase, so he'll be ready to attack, and then go to combat. This is just going to kind of be a bloodbath. Sun Mage has 5 front attack when you factor in his Life Force attack mod, and that's going to be plenty to take out this Magpie Mercenary before it really makes any real impact in the game. And then he has an option. He can kill the Wisp with the Pyrewolf Pup. He can kill it with the White Knight. He's going to opt to take it out with the Pup and fortify his position by moving his White Knight over. He could have opted to kill it with the White Knight and continue pressuring with the Pup, but I think I like this a little better because that's a really risky position moving forward, because you can expect that Alex will be able to summon here and take your Pup out. Even the White Knight, who's slightly hardier, I think you can expect him to be able to come up with 4 damage for 4 elements. So I don't really like advancing here. I like this consolidation. So that's going to be the play from Ryan, and he's going to draw 2 more cards. And we get Firebug, which is just a very basic damage over time spell, and the Banner Bearer, who is there to basically fortify swarms. Ryan has a pretty good board state right now, a lot of units on there, so this guy could be very powerful. Like next turn, he will have the 5 elements. He could, if the board still looks something like this, he could push up the Pup, he could push up the Sun Mage, and put Banner Bearer kind of in the middle of all of them, and then he's got like a pretty good position, but we'll see if that card actually ends up seeing any play. All right, and we pass it back over to Alex. All right, so Alex's turn 4. Again, I feel like he's reeling a little bit from losing 2 units, which weren't really able to accomplish much. So he's going to have to try and get board presence back. And that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to sacrifice one of these utility spells that he has a couple copies of. I agree with the sacrifice. Again, I might be looking to get rid of this Void because Levitate has the potential to be very strong in any matchup, really. It's a very good card. But and Void is more of a tech option for a different matchup. But you have two of them, so this keeps more diverse options open. So I like this sacrifice. He's going to get rid of that, and he's going to get a Darkness. I like the Darkness pickup again, staying in your primaries as much as possible. And he's going to opt to, again, play on Curve, which I agree with. I don't think there's any reason to really play the Wraith here for board presence. He couldn't actually reach Vindictive Phantasm this turn because he would have needed 2 Darkness before in order to fetch the fire here, and so he really has like the one option, which is Tengu Acrobat. So I agree with this. And he's going to choose to summon it here. This is kind of like the principle I said earlier, where this is another unit with 2 flying movement. It's very threatening at the center of the board. It can just go anywhere from here, so I like that. The difference here is it's going to allow this Powerwolf Pup to get a free attack on it, as opposed to summoning it in either corner. You lose control of the full board, but nothing can reach you anymore. You can't, none of these guys can actually get to you. So while I know I said for the Wisp, I would have summoned it here. Again, being a more passive player, I would probably keep my Tengu safe and summon him over here as opposed to taking space. But I think there's definitely value in summoning him in the center like this, and I don't mind it. I think it's good. So that's the play. Alex just building his board back after a pretty vicious turn 3 from Ryan. Knocked out a lot of his board. So we're going to draw 2 cards, pass it back over to Ryan. We get another copy of Wraith, like I mentioned, can be very effective in this matchup, so I think you're happy to see that, especially since you have the elements to play both of these on the same turn. And we get a Gargoyle, which is a pretty good unit for stuffing. Like if you're having a really good aggro game and you got to like your player's back line, you're really happy to see Gargoyle. You can stuff him in the back line, you can make him really hardy, can be just a really good post deep in your opponent's territory that's very hard to remove. If you had a deep Wisp, like if we had a Wisp over here, we could utilize that to summon a Gargoyle very deep, and again, use a Stone Form to make him incredibly hardy. This card can be very good in different circumstances. Under these circumstances, I'm not sure if he's going to be exactly what you need, but we'll see. All right, and back over to Ryan. All right, Ryan's turn 4. I'm going to untap our elements here. We're going to remove these attack tokens. Attacking in this game, again, giving you -1 armor until the start of your next turn. So this turn was very interesting. I don't really know what exactly was happening. I feel like I must have been distracted when it was going on. I feel like maybe Ryan was a little distracted when it was going on. I think I reviewed the actual VOD yesterday, and we were like explaining some rule stuff or something like that. You guys got to understand, we had a lot going on. We were trying to, explain a lot of the rules for new viewers to the stream. We were doing a lot of things. That's all I'm gonna say. This turn is a little bit mystifying. So okay, just bear with me, right? Obviously, like this is a very strong position. You have tons of options in your hand to make this very powerful, even without grabbing an element this turn, which you almost always will on an early turn like this. We're definitely still at the point where we have a lot of cards in our hand and we want to build up our engine still, but like you could very easily like push all these units up, get this on the board, get that on the board, just have like a super fortified position. You got your White Knight, can take this out, this Eerie Effigy. You have damage on the Tengu Acrobat. The White Knight is protecting both of these units. You have a Sun Mage in the back here, very menacing. You got the Medic also protecting your Powerwolf Hunter, which is really, really menacing. I mean, this position looks crazy, and you didn't even have to sacrifice anything for any elements at all. But you could if you wanted to. That's like one possible option. Instead of summoning these two, you could go ahead and do what I mentioned before, where you move these guys up like this, and you stick a Banner Bearer in here, and like that's pretty scary. Or you could put the White Knight in here, put the Banner Bearer over here, or up here. I mean, that's obviously going to hurt your Banner Bearer, but I mean, there's so many different ways to make a position that just looks really nasty here. But instead of any of that, I mentioned kind of my first blush was to play the Medic and the Pyrewolf Hunter. We're actually going to sacrifice both of these for elements on accident. And again, I mentioned I must have been distracted, because if I had seen this, I would have kind of corrected. It was obviously a mistake, you know. Ryan just forgot he had already made a sacrifice. But yeah, we're going to grab a Wind as well. So, okay, we've sacrificed 2 units, obviously not good. We were distracted. We also are grabbing this Wind. There are a few reasons I don't love the Wind grab this turn, especially if you're not going to end up spending it, which, spoiler alert, it doesn't get spent this turn. So this could have been like more in your primary colors that just end up getting overcharged. I understand why this Wind came out. You're prepping for this Flame Demon. You need a Wind and a Darkness in order to play this guy, so you can't just like grab both of those next turn and slam this on the board. You have to get one of them now. And if you were going to pick between the two, I prefer the Wind because it also is on the Angel in this deck, so it's a little more ambiguous what you're going for, whereas Darkness is pretty much just for the Flame Demon. But this telegraphs the Flame Demon anyway, because if this was an Angel, you'd wait till next turn to get this Wind, because you could do it later. The Angel only costs 2 light and a Wind, and then 3 of anything, so you wouldn't have to pick this up now, and therefore would not opt to pick this up now. And if you're planning on overcharging this anyway, you don't need to pick it up at all, because it could be an overcharged fire, which then it doesn't telegraph the Flame Demon, because you're always going to get more fire kind of regardless of what's in your hand. So your opponent doesn't know what's coming. You just have an overcharged element. And while they could guess that that might be for Flame Demon, it's much less obvious than picking up a Wind. And I just think that, you know, this Wind isn't going to be that useful ongoing. So like an actual fire unit would be more useful regardless, even if you weren't worried about letting your opponent know what's coming. So the 2 sacrifices, obviously not good. The grabbing the Wind, I kind of disagree with. So all of this, we're not off to a great start. And then we've sacrificed kind of the 2 units that I would expect to play this turn. We could still play the Banner Bearer, but Ryan's not going to opt to do that either. What he's going to do is he's going to go directly to combat. He's going to advance the White Knight and take out the Eerie Effigy. So that makes sense. I like that. Getting more space, take out the 1-drop. Everything's fine. Everything makes sense about that. He's going to advance the Pyrewolf Pup and attack the Tengu Acrobat. He is going to opt to use the Pup's Surge ability with a fire element here to actually get 2 damage on the Tengu Acrobat instead of 0. Normally the 1 attack from the Pyrewolf Pump would just clank off of the Tengu Acrobat's armor. But in this case, we boosted the Pup to 3 attack power and 2 damage gets through. And then I believe there was a bit of a... Oh wait, no, we advanced the Sun Mage as well. That much makes sense. And then I think there was a little bit of a miscalculation or a misread here. He's going to cast Firebug on this Tengu Acrobat. And Firebug is going to deal 1 damage when it's cast. And I believe he was thinking 1 more damage at the start of Alex's turn, but it's actually at the start of the spell's caster's turn. So the Tengu Acrobat is actually going to survive on 1 health here, which is very bad, because it gives him a turn to actually use his full movement and attack and actually kill something, which is going to let Alex maybe get back into the game. So yeah, Ryan kind of let up on the gas a little bit here with this miscalculation and kind of distracted sacrificing an Element Crab. He now is not going to play any other spell on this turn. He really only used 2 of his elements, so he's playing way under tempo here, and he's actually going to choose to overcharge this light instead of the Wind. I don't know about that. You might as well just overcharge this because it's the least useful of all the elements you have. But that was the turn as it was played. He's going to draw 2 more cards. He's going to get another replacement Frenzied Flame. We saw this guy earlier. And a Pyrewolf Alpha, which is a very scary finisher that just does a lot of damage and has solid health. And play passes back over to Alex. Alright, Alex's turn 5. I think he's happy with having a little bit of board presence now. He's got a little bit of breathing room because his Tengu is actually able to survive. And this is the turn where he's going to start actually fighting back a little bit here. I don't think he's attacked any units yet this game, which this is his 5th turn, so That's a lot of turns of pacifism. Um, yeah. So I think he's happy to actually have an opportunity to fight back here. And he's going to actually sacrifice one of these wraiths. I think the mindset here was the same as why he sacrificed the levitate earlier. He's got a couple of them. This keeps his options open and diverse, which again can be good, but I think I would opt to sacrifice this void again, just because wraith can be so powerful in this matchup against all these unarmored units. But he's going to sacrifice the wraith, and he's going to pick up a fire. He doesn't have any overcharged elements to play the Vindictive Phantasm, and he wants to get this out this turn. I think he was really between the Vindictive Phantasm and this Gargoyle. Either way, they can kill the White Knight, but he opts to play the Vindictive Phantasm over the Gargoyle. I think that's fine. Gargoyle's better when played further up because he's just kind of a bulky, like a marker, a stake in the ground. And he has no room to play him advance, so I like the Vindictive Phantasm, and that's what's going to happen. He's going to tap these guys to summon the Vindictive Phantasm here, and then go to combat. Vindictive Phantasm's 4 armor-piercing damage can easily clear this White Knight, so that guy goes down. And the Tengu Acrobat has enough power to take out the Pyrowolf Pup just by attacking, but Alex opted to dunk here a little bit, and he moved his Tengu Acrobat up here, having 1 Blaze of Glory, doing 7 damage, because the 6 back attack minus the -1 armor now from the Pyrowolf Pup actually gives it a bonus damage, makes it do 7 damage, and that's going to easily clear the pup. And he has just a ton of summoning space, but no elements to really capitalize on it. And unfortunately, that Acrobat is going to die at the start of Ryan's turn. So he's going to draw 2 cards. Let me move these over. He gets an Assassin's Blade, which is an attachment that just makes your attacks deal armor-piercing damage. Again, in this matchup, maybe not the highest impact card, but we'll see. And a Destroy, 5 armor-piercing damage to target unit. Like I said, Darkness has a lot of armor-piercing damage, which is why early on I kind of gave the advantage to this deck over here. But they're still useful. 5 armor-piercing damage is good, even if it's on an unarmored unit. It can take out a lot of key things. And yeah, so play passes back over to Ryan. At the start of Ryan's turn, I guess I'll do that on the other side. We'll pass play first. Okay, so at the start of Ryan's turn, this Tengu Acrobat does, unfortunately for Alex, die to the Firebug here. So Firebug finds its mark. We untap our resources here. And, I mean, despite the last turn, Ryan still looks like he's in a decent position. We've got pretty even board states. We've both got 4 drops out here. They're not really threatening each other, but Ryan's in a more forward position, so he has momentum. Despite being player 2 as well, so he's got momentum and resource advantage. In terms of cards, Alex has a bit of a card advantage, but that is only because of the extra sacrifice. Card advantage at this point would be completely even if we hadn't made the 1 too many sacrifices last turn, but it doesn't look too bad. I think this game looks still pretty good for Ryan. He can do a lot to put pressure on his opponent this turn, so he is going to do exactly that. He is going to sacrifice this Banner Bearer now that most of his board got wiped out. I think I agree with this. It looks like that guy's not going to be the most useful anymore. He's going to pick up a Fire Element, and he's going to advance his Sun Mage and try to just get a real spread out board state here by summoning a Deep Pyrowolf Alpha. Now this card is very threatening because if not answered, if you don't fill up this space or kill this unit, next turn, because of this overcharged element, this actually represents lethal. If Ryan is able to advance this Pyrowolf Alpha here, he can attack Alex with the left 5, because you always attack towards center when attacking players. These 2 spots use the front attack, this one uses left, and this one uses right. So he can use that 5, but he can boost it with the Surge ability an infinite amount of times for as many fire elements as he has. And he has 3 here, plus the 1 overcharged element, and he could sacrifice any card in his hand for fire. So this needs to be answered. This is very scary. And then on the complete other side of the board, we have the Sun Mage here, who, if unanswered, can walk forward and allow Ryan to summon to the back row. So this is really scary. And part of the thing that makes it like the way I would expect this to get answered is probably like a big thing summoned here to take out the Sun Mage, and then you have Vindictive Phantasm over here. But the problem with this line of play, and the thing that makes this threatening, is the Vindictive Phantasm will only do 4 damage here. So it's not going to take out the Firewolf Alpha. Firewolf Alpha can revenge kill it, and it still won't even die to the reaction where it loses 2 more health. It'll still survive on 1. So this is just like not a great, like it's still pretty threatening for Alex, right? So this is a lot of pressure. Ryan's going to draw 2 more cards. He's going to end up getting a Mirror Mail, which gives one of his units immunity to all burst and attachment spells controlled by his enemy. And our first hero draw, I believe, Flameo Inferno's Maw, which is a very strong, solid unit that wants to be played forward, which it looks like is going to be possible based on the current board state. So those are some pretty solid draws, especially, you know, if you manage to play this Mirror Mail on Flameo here, that could be very, very scary. You could have a spell immune Flameo, and it's got a lot of armor, and he gets more health as he kills stuff, and he gets more attack as he moves forward, and he gets more attack as he kills stuff, and it could just be a really, really scary time. So I think you're happy to see these cards, at least I would be. And play passes back to Alex. All right, Alex has turned 6. Let's untap these resources, remove the attack token, and let's see. So, like I mentioned before, we have a problem. We have to deal with this Firewolf Alpha, and we have to deal with this Sun Mage. Now, the conventional approach would be probably summon the dragon here to take out the Sun Mage and block with the Vindictive Phantasm, attack him, do as much damage as possible. Expect to lose this card next turn, but then you have a very softened Firewolf Alpha at 1 health. Hopefully you can deal with it at that point. The problem with that is you're against Light, which could have a lot of healing effects. All this damage you're doing could end up getting healed back up pretty easily. And your opponent's going to have another turn to just summon more threats and just apply more pressure. So actually, Alex is going to opt to do a different approach, and I like his approach a lot. It's not something I would ever think to do, but the way the game played out and just in general, I think it's just very interesting. I like it a lot. So he is going to opt to play the dragon, but you can see that the dragon's front attack at 7 just neatly takes out this Firewolf Alpha, which is the most threatening thing on the board. And he is going to sacrifice the Assassin's Blade, which I agree with the sacrifice. Generally, this card isn't going to do that much in this matchup. You can see low armor values. 1 armor on the Sun Mage, no armor on the Firewolf Alpha. Not going to get a lot of use, most likely. So I'd probably opt to sacrifice it as well. And he's going to get Darkness Element, which is good. Primary elements. No issues there. And he's going to spend it all. Spend all the cash to summon a dragon here. And he's going to go to combat and take out this Firewolf Alpha. And then he's actually just going to push the Vindictive Phantasm. I would never think to do this. I would always like try to like feudally stop this Sun Mage, but that doesn't really make any sense. Like, you can't get over here anyway. You'd have to like levitate to get the boost you need, but then you don't have a neat way to kill the Firewolf Alpha. It's just all bad. So he just opts to push it. And now, the thing that I really love about this is it gives Ryan a really tough choice. He can continue to try and pressure the opponent, but if he does that, he's leaving all this summoning space open. Or he can go answer this, but it just buys Alex more time. And, you know, anything that answers this Vindictive Phantasm can be revenge killed by the dragon very easily because of its flying movement. You know, it can move diagonally. It can cover this spot very easily. So I really like this position. I think it's making actually the most out of a pretty tough situation and very much capitalizing on that one turn before where Ryan hit the brakes. I think this is really putting him in a more awkward position than anything I would think to do. So I like this a lot. We're going to draw 2 cards, as this is the end of Alex's turn, and pass it back over to Ryan. So we see another Magpie Mercenary. It's the same guy that kind of died earlier. And a Cloud Scraper. A Cloud Scraper is a very scary unit because as it kills things, which is very powerful, with its very powerful attacks, it just forces your opponent to discard cards. And it's one of the... I don't really want to call it an engine, but it's one of the main culprits of like this deck's card advantage, like late game card advantage. Cards like this, cards like Lost to the Wind that we might see later, and cards like Zombie and Relentless Dead and Skeleton, which we actually haven't drawn into. They're pretty common in this deck, but we just haven't drawn into any. Those are kind of the things that keep this deck at card advantage. So we're very happy to see this at this point in the game where we can use it. It can be very, very potent. All right, pass it over to Ryan. All right, Ryan's turn 6. We're going to untap. And like we said, he has a bit of an awkward situation here. He can kind of just try and push and end it, or he can deal with this threat back here. I don't know what the best option is, to be honest. I really don't know. I think generally I try to answer the board, so I might let this stop me, but that might just be giving my opponent enough time to turn this around. And yeah, it's just a tough situation. So let's see what Ryan did. He's going to actually sacrifice this Mirror Mail, which, I don't know, Mirror Mail can be pretty good against this deck, but he's going to opt to sacrifice it. He's going to grab a Darkness. Again, prepping for the Flame Demon. But he doesn't summon it this turn, so I kind of disagree with this element gain. I think I would have liked to have seen maybe more fire. I'm not sure. I think it gets... Does it get overcharged this turn? It looks like it doesn't. So yeah, I would have liked to see maybe more fire. Maybe he's thinking he won't want to sacrifice anything for elements next turn, and that's why he's not opting to pick up anything else. I kind of get it. But okay, he's going with the Darkness. He's going to go to combat first. He's actually going to opt to ignore this unit. He's going to advance the Sun Mage, attack Alex for 3 damage, using this right attack side, which is a 0, but +3 from Life Force. Sun Mage is 6 health. So we're going to do 3 damage to Alex, is 10 health, leaving him at 7. And then we're going to summon units, and he's going to opt to summon his hero, Flamio, using this Overcharged Light as an Earth. It's the second time that has happened this game. And we're going to summon Frenzied Flame. Right here. Oh, he is actually able to overcharge this Darkness. Okay, I like this pick. I miscalculated earlier. I like this. Because it leaves you the option later to perhaps not pick up more elements. We're getting to the later stages of the game. Ryan's hand's looking pretty small. We maybe won't want to get another element when the time comes to play the Flame Demon. So prepping it early is, again, telegraphing it super duper hard. But you kind of already did that the turn you played the Wind, so I don't really mind it so much. And so we overcharged the Darkness element. We've jammed up this board super hard. And this just actually does look super, super threatening. I remember when I was watching this game, I was like, all right, well, this game's probably over. We've got damage to the player. We've got 3 units in the back row. I did kind of write it off. And I was like, well, this is why you don't advance the Vindictive Phantasm. But that might not be how it turns out. So Ryan's going to draw 2 more cards, and let's see how Alex answers this threat. All right, so when I was looking at the game from Ryan's perspective, I was thinking, all right, Alex is turn 7. He had a really warbling early game that is just now catching up with him. This is just unanswerable. But then I looked at the options in his hand, and I got thinking, because Flamio actually hasn't been able to destroy any units, he only has 5 base health. And because of that, he can actually be destroyed by the Destroy spell. This is part of why Mirror Mail on Flamio is so important. It's very expensive in terms of light elements, that sort of play, but it would stop this Destroy from just answering your Flamio, which you're not super happy with. Even though it is 4 elements for 4 elements, this is a hero. You don't want this to go down. Do this single removal spell. You'd rather that not happen, especially because this is such a snowball unit. As he starts to kill things, he starts to get healthier, and then this trade wouldn't be possible anymore. But because it is, I was thinking this turn you destroy Flamio, and that opens up space for the Wraith to come in. And then the Wraith Slay the Reckless can actually take out this Sun Mage. And obviously the Dragon is going to have no problem taking out the Frenzied Flame. And then with the Vindictive Phantasm, you can go ahead and push him up You could even push like the Vindictive Phantasm over here and move up your dragon to answer the Frenzy Flame like this using the back attack. Now you have a pretty solid forward position, 3 units on the board to your opponent's none, and you're in the late game with this deck where you want to be. I think this is a solid position, right? You've basically rebuffed your opponent's attack, got rid of his board entirely, and at this point the game is completely in your control. So it's crazy to me that like I saw this turn from Ryan's perspective and I was like, oh, there's no hope at all. And then I looked at Alex's hand and I'm like, oh, he actually has options to deal with this. But this is not going to be what he chooses to do. He's actually going to go with a different line of play that answers it pretty well as well, which I think is really cool. Not what I was thinking and not what I saw, but I like his answers as well. So he's going to actually sacrifice the other Levitate for another wind element. I guess he's just thinking, I've had this thing forever. It's never been useful at all. We'll just get rid of it. Which, again, I think Levitate's a really good spell, so I don't know if I agree with that. Again, I'd probably sacrifice the Void over Levitate. I know I've said that over and over and over, but kind of case in point here, right? Like, you've had this AoE anti-armor spell for so long, and just your opponent has never had the armored units to use it on. And that's just because it's really not for this matchup. It's for a matchup where, you are fighting a lot of armored units, so you can see that this isn't getting play. It's been in his hand for longer than any other card at this point. I'd probably opt to sacrifice that. But he sacrifices the Levitate, and he's going to grab the Wind, and he's going to summon a Cloud Scraper. And he's going to summon the Cloud Scraper right here. Yeah, that's right. So Cloud Scraper has an enormous back attack that is going to be able to do all but 1 damage to Flameo, and the last damage, oops, I forgot to take this off at the start of the turn. Last damage is actually going to come from the Dragon's Fire Breath. If the Dragon Fire Breath's to the right, he can take out the Frenzied Flame, deal exactly 1 damage against, because it's 3 damage against the 2 armor to Flameo, and as long as he orders his attacks correctly, it'll only do 1 damage to his own Cloud Scraper. So that's what he's going to do. He's going to opt to Fire Breath right first, taking this out, dealing 1 damage here, and dealing 1 damage here. And then he's going to opt to attack with the Cloud Scraper, finishing off Flameo. So this does a few things because of Cloud Scraper's reactions. When he slays an enemy, his opponent has to discard a card, and he can move into a surrounding tile. Surrounding being any of the 8 tiles around the unit, so he basically gets a flying movement, even though this is the turn that he's summoned. So he's going to take out Flameo here, which is great, and he forces Ryan to discard this Lightning Cross. Ryan having a lot of removal in his hand, he opts to discard some of that removal. I might have discarded a burn, or maybe, I don't know, it's tough. It's a tough choice. Cloud Scraper is just such a good card. By the time you play it and it starts making you discard cards, you usually don't have too much in your hand. Makes this a really awkward choice. I definitely wouldn't get rid of the unit. He's very spell heavy over here, so I agree with discarding a spell, but I don't know. Maybe would have discarded a burn to keep the options open. Anyway, and he's going to actually retreat with the Cloud Scraper back over here. Now, I like the order of these attacks. I like Flame Breath first, as I mentioned before. If we had attacked with the Cloud Scraper first, that would have been bad for a lot of reasons. Not only would Cloud Scraper have lower armor, so it would have taken 2 damage from your own Flame Breath, but it wouldn't have killed the unit, so that's no discarded card for your opponent, and you weren't able to reposition your Cloud Scraper back here to cover your back row. Both of these things are super, super important to be able to do. So the order of the attacks here is actually really, really important, and Alex chose right, and he's actually going to retreat his Vindictive Phantasm back, trying to fill the gaps here. We don't want some gigantic threat to just show up here and just blow us up, because we're at 7 health. If we leave this open, that Flame Demon that we know is coming, because it was telegraphed, can just show up here, do 6 damage to face, this does 3 damage to face, and we lose. So we actually have to retreat this Vindictive Phantasm back, or fill the space. And with 1 Fire Element and 1 Darkness, we got nothing to fill the space with. So this was forced, or you lose the game. So obviously I agree. And he's going to opt to overcharge the Darkness here. I probably would overcharge the Fire, because that's your splash. If you ever have options between primary or splash to overcharge, I almost always recommend overcharging the splash, just because it's generally less useful. Alright, but that's the turn, and we'll pass it back over to Ryan. Attack kind of thwarted. Well, I do want to point out that, like, between the two lines of play, the first thing that I did would have taken out the entire board, but this line of play forced Ryan to discard a card, which is also very useful. And this plugs up the board, so this board position up here isn't the end of the world. I think I would prefer mine because it's safer. This sort of thing just really scares me, having units back here. But I do like forcing your opponent to discard a card. That's what the deck's all about. It is trying to get that late game card advantage, and getting this engine rolling, I think, is a good call. So I think both plays are good, but just the first answer that I showed is a little more my style. All right, passing play. Or wait, we got to draw cards. Almost forgot to draw. So we're gonna draw a zombie and a zombie. You'll love to see it. Here come all the 1-drops. Here's all your recursion. Little late, not the happiest to see these draws, but you know what? Maybe they can like plug up the board or something like that a little later on. All right, back over to Ryan. Okay, so we have the whole board to work with in terms of summoning, and we have a bunch of threats here now. Alex is definitely starting to get a solid foothold in this game. We need to deal with some of these units, and that is exactly what Ryan is going to do. He's going to sacrifice one of these burns for a fire element, and finally it is time to play the Flame Demon, obviously leaving elements open for this burn. We're going to go to combat. The Flame Demon is easily going to destroy this Vindictive Phantasm with its 6 attack, and when it slays a unit, it splashes 3 armor-piercing damage to the adjacent units that it itself is immune to, but when this unit is slain, it deals 2 damage to its killer. So this attack just hurts everybody. It kills this. The Flame Demon takes 2 damage from Vindictive Phantasm's reaction. The Dragon is going to take 3 armor-piercing damage. The Cloud Scraper is going to take 3 armor-piercing damage, which allows it to be easily finished off by this Sun Mage here. And then on the second summoning phase, we are going to make use of this burn to take out the Dragon. It's just 5 more damage against its 1 armor. It cannot withstand it. It takes 4 damage for exact lethal, and it's going to go down as well. Okay, and so, yeah, Ryan neutralized all the progress that Alex has made, all that great turn he had. It's all gone, but he's running out of cards in hand. He's going to draw up another Pyrewolf Hunter, which we've seen before, and the first banner we've seen, Blazing Surge. So let's pass it over to Alex and see what he does after losing his board yet again. Okay. Let's untap all of our resources here, and let's figure out what's going on. So the one thing, obviously the board does not look good for Alex. You've got big threats here near your front door. You have nothing out on the field for you, but you have a lot of elements and you have a lot of cards in hand. If you look at the card advantage here, it's like, Alex is still, he's got a full hand here, 7 cards. Ryan's looking at 3. So, he's got that going for him, and he's got a lot of cheap things, so he can play a lot of cards at one time, and he actually has a really efficient answer here in Wraith. I've been saying it kind of the whole game, but this card's very important in this matchup, and I think this is the turn where you're going to see why. So we're going to sacrifice one of these zombies. Again, we've got a couple of them. We're in the late game. We're probably not going to need 2. It's a little excessive, especially since it's recursive anyway. One of them can go a long way. We don't need both. So we're going to grab up an earth element here. I don't know. I might have wanted to use the darkness to, if possible, to cover this cost, but I think he's prepping for the gargoyle. Although that's not what's going to happen this turn, so I think this is a little preemptive. I'm not sure if I would have grabbed this earth here, but it is what it is. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to cast Destroy on the Flame Demon, which is going to be enough damage to take it out. The Flame Demon because of the Vindictive Phantasm's 2 damage, is sitting at 5 health. So this is just enough to kill it. So unfortunately, you know, not having any support and being able to heal this guy back up caused him to be in death range from another Destroy. So Destroy coming in clutch again, it's taken out Flameo, it's taken out the Flame Demon. It's answering all the biggest threats. And then, this is probably why I would have opted to get a Darkness here, but we got to use this Overcharge element and a Wind to summon the Wraith. And the Wraith is going to actually use its Slay the Reckless ability, or attack mod, because the Life Mage is down 1 armor from attacking and actually has 0 armor, and it is going to take 3 damage from the Wraith side attack, which is a lethal attack, which is going to kill it. Even though it only do 3 damage, it's going to just destroy it outright. So that removes that, and we don't really have too much to do here. Can't afford anything else. Going to opt to overcharge the Wind again. Again, I kind of disagree. Wind's one of your primary elements. You just picked up this Earth. You could just as easily have picked up a Darkness and overcharged that in order to cover the Earth costs in the future. It telegraphs less. It's more utility in the long run. But we're overcharging the Wind, and we're just sitting here on an Earth now. But we're going to draw 2 more cards. Another Assassin's Blade. Not really for this matchup, but with the Subtle Phantasm, I mean, these are a key combo. So maybe with the 2 of these combined, that could be a very potent combo. It's a 2-for-1 trade, but the ability for it to answer anything is just very powerful. And again, a very mobile unit. Not the latest game draws. I don't think you're like overly happy with these, but you're glad to see them together. So, okay, let's swing back over to Ryan's side. Alright, Ryan's turn 8. We're going to untap everything. And I think this is where we begin to despair a little bit, because we're down to 3 cards in hand, and our attackers are gone, and we're in a late game situation against Wings of Death, and we're just not. Unfortunately, it just feels like the game is slipping away. We kind of missed our window a bit. And unfortunately, like, not only do we have 3 cards in hand, we can't play really. Like, we could play Explosion here just to take out a Wraith. Kind of a waste of an AoE spell. That doesn't feel great. And you could play it alongside Pirewolf Hunter just to play a little more on curve and, like, give yourself some board presence. But it just doesn't feel good. So we're going to opt not to sacrifice here. I think that makes a lot of sense. You don't need more elements in a situation like this. You need more cards. So we're not going to actually get any elements this turn. We're going to use all 4 of these fire elements to actually put our banner out here, Blazing Surge. So our units going forward are going to be more powerful. But that only helps if you have units. And then we're just going to overcharge the Darkness and draw 2. Kind of an uneventful turn. I think this is where Ryan really felt like things were slipping away. But, you know, late game draw and Mirror the People's Bond. Again, another card that really wants other units on the board, wants you to have some board presence, so a little too late. But, you know, at least you are drawing into some of your late game. And at least you're drawing units. So I think we could be happy with these draws, but not the most eventful turn. Alright, back over to Alex for his turn 9. So we're going to remove the attack token. Oh. I tried to be fancy. That was my fault. Okay, so at this point, we've got good board presence, you know, no opposing threats. We're just going to try and build up our board, and that's exactly what's going to happen. We don't need any more elements. We're just going to use our massive card advantage to just swarm, basically just swarm the board, and that can be dangerous against this deck in general, because Fire has all of the AoE removal spells, except for the only one that's in Light and Fire, which obviously our opponent also has access to. So it can be a little scary to swarm, but I think at this point, you just try to play around the AoE spells as best you can, and, you know, if your opponent has it, they have it, and if they don't, they don't. If they have it, hopefully some of the units that die are recursive and you can resummon them. If they don't have it, or like hopefully your units are hardy enough to take it. So Alex is just going to push up this Wraith and just throw a bunch of units on the board, which again, I agree. I think that's what you do here. He plays the zombie on this side to take advantage of its stronger attack side on the right there. He's going to play the Wraith. Or no, he already has the Wraith out, sorry. He's going to summon the Subtle Phantasm with the fire. He's going to put that over here, threatening a good portion of the board. And he's going to summon... He's going to use the Overcharged Wind for a wind. He's going to summon his Gargoyle here. I like the placement of the Gargoyle. Normally, again, 2 flying movement on this Subtle Phantasm. I like playing these units in center, but if you're trying to play around AoE spells while still pushing as far forward as possible, I think you want your frailer units on the edges here. You don't want to do something like this, where a Lightning Cross can take out all 3 of these units, and then it allows your opponent to just focus on the one threat. In this case, a Lightning Cross can take out these 2, but it misses the zombie entirely and doesn't take out the Gargoyle. Your opponent's still left with 2 threats. I think this is a good position. I don't know if this was intentional. I have to assume it was. That he was playing around, like, specifically Lightning Cross or Explosion, but more Lightning Cross when playing in this format, or playing this formation, and just trying to play as far forward as possible. I like that a lot. So, and again, the Subtle Phantasm, being on the side with 2 movement, he can't get over here, but since he has no front attack, like, there's really no point for him to be over there anyway. He still threatens the entire board from this outside space. So this is a little different than that very first thing I said about the Wraith. So I like this spot a lot. Just happened to be almost like the perfect units for this. The only thing I would do in this case... Oh, he can't because he had to move the Wraith forward. It would be nice to be able to use the Gargoyle's Stone Form here in order to gain the extra 2 armor, but he wasn't able to do that because he summoned it forward. You could have summoned it before combat back here and then gone with the Stone Form, but I think it's better just to push it further up. You want to take advantage of your opponent's like lapse in units here and just push. So this is super scary, and the tables have certainly turned at this point. This is where it's very, very evident that that is the case. We're going to drop another Destroy and an Assassin. And let's see how Ryan responds. So on Ryan's turn 9, I think here I'd opt to take advantage of the Blazing Surge and just try to get more units on the board. The problem with that is this Subtle Phantasm just being able to answer whatever it feels like. So I think what you end up having to do, you can cover this, but like you have to put the Sun Mage here and the Pyrewolf Hunter here. That way the Pyrewolf Hunter, your 0 armor unit, the Subtle Phantasm can't get in on it unless you're able to answer the Sun Mage, but I don't see any way to do that with the current board state. This isn't going to be enough. 3 attack does not kill the Sun Mage. 2 is only 1 damage. I mean, that's not going to trigger Slay the Reckless, so that's not going to take him out. Zombie's not even close enough, and you know, it isn't really a factor here. So I think this position is kind of how you have to answer this. It protects your Firewolf Hunter from the Subtle Phantasm. He can't get around to here without some sort of levitate shenanigans, which could be possible, but you have to at least play around the board if you're on the back foot like this. And he's just being covered by the Sun Mage. And then like Subtle Phantasm can't even hurt this. Wraith barely does anything here. None of your units can even be killed by anything that's on the board right now. And since they're beefier, it allows you to get a board presence, and then the next turn you can bring in Mira, who then makes everybody stronger. In that case, makes your Sun Mage even more powerful, and you start fighting this back. But instead, Ryan just opts to slam his hero on the board because, I mean, look at that art. Can you blame him? Look how beautiful this card is. Borderless, full art. You finally drew your hero. You're so excited. I mean, who could blame him, really? So he's going to spend the Darkness as a light, and he ends up overcharging the Wind, so he doesn't tap that. He's going to spend this 6 and just slam Mirror in the corner here. I think just thinking, I'm going to prep for next turn. Next turn I can get these other guys on the board, and then they'll have extra health and stuff, and everything will be great. I think that's the mindset. Overcharge to the Wind here, but that may not be how it turns out. And then these draws are just... They honestly aren't that bad. If you had played the other units, these are great units to play alongside Mira next turn, and everything's going to be peachy. You could overcharge this Darkness or the Wind or whatever, and you would have the elements to play Mira alongside well, alongside the Powerwolf Pup. You won't be able to afford the medic without making an additional sacrifice, which you probably don't want to do. But things are actually looking okay. You want to have more bodies with Mira and Blazing Surge on the field. So these aren't the worst draws, even though they are 2 1-drops in the very, very late game. Not ideal, but you can make it work. But unfortunately, we're moving to our last turn of the game. So this is Alex's turn 10, and this is going to be the final turn of the match. Just going to prove to be a little too much for Ryan to handle. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to place the Assassin's Blade on the Subtle Phantasm. Like I said before, this is a known combo, very, very powerful. And the Subtle Phantasm is going to scoot on in here and take out Mira. Just with a little poke. And that is just super unfortunate. Everything else advances. And then we're going to summon other units like the Magpie Mercenary. Up here, we're going to summon the Assassin. Actually, you don't even need to spend the Earth. Just put the Assassin down there. And we just have this crazy board presence that, I mean, what are you going to do to stop it? Wind is overcharged, not that it matters. And we're going to draw Swift Spoils and Lost to the Wind, which, if the game continued to go on, this would just decimate Ryan's hand. We got big problems at this point. And at this point, Ryan pretty much scoops. That's the end of the game. I mean, death is coming. Your hero just got taken out very cheekily. You got no board presence again. You have no space to summon anything. Did a little bit of theory crafting of what can happen here, but also just the formations of these guys make Explosion really awkward to cast, because you want to summon in one of these spots, but then you're exploding your own guy for like a lot of damage. So if you had like all of the options in the world, then this might be okay. Like, I think what's best here is probably, can you even do all that? Oh, that's so much fire. Yeah, you can though. So like, okay, I think the best thing to do would be to summon a Pyrewolf Hunter here, have it clear this. So just go straight to combat. Get your little 2-for-1, or I guess it's going to be 2-for-2 because this guy's going to die, but that's okay. And then you can have, yeah, I guess you just fill space with the medic and then explode here. And does that kill everything? It doesn't even kill the assassin. Yeah, you're just in a really bad spot. Obviously, this explosion is huge. It's going to do all but one of the health of the assassin and take out these other 2 units. But you're still in a lot of trouble, I think. I think that's the best you could really hope for, but even then, your medic is going to die. This guy is going to hit you for 4. I'm going to hit you for 4 damage. This guy's going to hit you for 3 more. Your medic's dead. You know, it's just rough. And that's just what's on board. That's without even playing anything. Because this attack, Destroy can neatly answer this. You could just advance with the zombie and do the last 3 damage, so that's actually just lethal. It's just, and that's without, you know, Alex could remove the rest of your hand. It's just kind of over at this point. So Ryan scoops, forfeits the match. It was a match well played and quite a roller coaster. It was such an interesting showcase of the 2 decks. I really liked the way that, you know, there was an advantage one way and then it went back the other, and it was just a very interesting game. I really wanted to talk about it because I feel like there's like kind of a clear point where at the early game, Alex is making some really unorthodox decisions, and you can kind of see why they're unorthodox. They kind of sacrificed a lot of board presence, and while they could be made to work, his turn 3 was just very, very, I don't know, just rough. He put a lot of units in a position where they were going to get killed without getting him any value, and it put him way on the back foot. And then from there, he was probably set to honestly lose the game from those mistakes. But then Ryan kind of gave him a little bit of space on his turn 4. Gave him a slower turn, hit the brakes a little bit, and just goes to show you how in this game it's like so momentum based that just taking your foot off the gas for a little bit can be all your opponent needs to eventually turn around the game and go ahead and take it back. I think when I was watching this game in person, I really didn't know what had happened. Like I wasn't, again, a lot was going on, so I wasn't really sure how this had happened. But going back through and analyzing the match, like play by play, I think I can kind of see what happened here. And I just think it's like a really cool showing of the two decks. So if you watched this whole thing, thank you so much for staying with me. I know it was probably pretty long. There was a lot I wanted to talk about, a lot of different iterations and options that weren't used, and I wanted to talk about all the things that were done. And yeah, but I just thought this game was super interesting and wanted to share it with you guys. And it was a great celebration of finally being funded on Kickstarter. Thank you all so much for your participation in that. If you still want to help us out, we got stretch goals to reach, and the Kickstarter is still up, so please take a look at that. I'll link that in the description below. If this game has made you interested in the game and want to learn how to play, we've got a rule book, a couple how to play videos, some other older content from when we were still, testing the game and stuff. And obviously, like, not all this art is finalized. A lot of our gameplay at this point is all still testing. Kind of the normal spiel that I say all the time. But anyway, I guess that does it. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all on the field of Elementile.